This is not your grave, but you are welcome in it.
Operation Delhi 2547. Planet Hatyai. The operation involved the denial of material to insurrectionist forces on Hatyai, as the UNSC forces destroyed 21 special technician assets belonging to the rebels at the operation's conclusion. Records state that only Agent Jameson Locke participated in the operation. Battle of Meridian 2548. Planet Meridian. Prelude. The planet was a major human outer colony with a robust economy and a large UNSC presence, home to several military contractors that provided the UNSC equipment, including Shalib's Defense Solutions. Most of the population had believed they survived the Covenant's onslaught throughout the outer colonies. However, the Covenant discovered the planet, and realizing the colony's value to the rest of the UNSC, sought to blockade Meridian. The battle. Meridian's moon quickly came under siege by the Covenant as they attempted to cut off supply lines from other fronts of the war. The UNSC fought against the invaders, with Meridian's UNSC Air Force garrisons and extensive orbital defense grid. The initial battle lasted for a week near Hestia's moons, aided by the smaller than normal Covenant fleets. However, they eventually broke through and began surface operations. Despite the perimeter break, the human defenses were able to continue to bottleneck most Covenant forces in orbit. The Covenant were also impeded by a foreign artifact in a village, which kept them from glassing, due to the Covenant's reverence for foreign artifacts. The fighting around the planet's atmosphere caused disturbances resulting in heavier than normal rainstorms. The first prototype Mantis mech vehicles engaged 18 Covenant anti-aircraft cannons, successfully eliminating the weaponry. On the ground, the UNSC and Meridian's military mainly focused on defending major population centers, withholding informing the planet's population of the invasion as per procedure to avoid causing a panic. However, one of the places targeted by the Covenant was the remote town with the foreign artifact. When the Covenant entered the atmosphere with a heavy corvette, they anchored directly above the town. The residents were unprepared, and roughly 30% of the population was killed. The remaining fled into the town's old bomb shelter, where they remained safe. The Covenant forces then focused on defending the artifact site and began excavating. Having been outside the shelter at the start of the invasion, local teens Saskia Nazari, Victor Gallardo, Dorian Nguyen, and Evelyn Rousseau linked with Spartan 3 Owen Bravo 096, who had crashed on the moon while trying to defend it from Covenant forces. Owen trained the teens in combat, and they worked on disrupting the Covenant operation and rescuing civilians. The group succeeded in rescuing the remaining survivors from the bomb shelter and fled in a prowler, and damaged the overhead Covenant corvette on their escape. The group then linked up with UNSC Sparrow in orbit and were transported to safety. The Oni Xenomaterials Exploitation Group became interested in the foreign artifact the Covenant were after and sought to prevent them from succeeding. Therefore, Oni enlisted the teens to assist Spartan 3 Owen Bravo 096 in retrieving the artifact first. 3 months later, the teens returned to Meriden to recover the artifact, which would show containing a map to a foreigner structure in Annecy. With Oni having difficulties extracting the team, Owen and the militia forces traveled to Annecy, where the teens learned that Meriden was actually being attacked for 6 months, as opposed to the 3 months they had originally believed. Invasion of Algolis 2546. Unknown planet. 2 soldiers, Sergeant Ghost and his female marine, are taking shelter in a forest surrounded by their dead comrades. The female asks her sergeant about his call sign, while he tends to her wounds with a blank face. With her dying breath, she asks him to be human. The woman's last words leaves the lone survivor deeply disturbed. Having died on the inside, he cries out to the sky. March 2549. Planet Algolis. The planet is under attack by a large Covenant force. Marines are tasked with defending the UNSC Weapons Research Facility, T-12A, and are taking heavy casualties, fighting both air and ground forces while buying time for civilian evacuation. However, the Hades Corps of UNSC engineers refuse to retreat until all weapons and navigational data are destroyed in compliance with the Cole Protocol. As Covenant forces begin their final push to overtake the base, a Mark I armored defense system, of which was to be destroyed by the Marines, is seen flying out of a nearby hangar. The suit is being piloted by Sergeant Ghost, disobeying the Cole Protocol in an effort to help the citizens and his Marines escape. Ghost proceeds to engage the Covenant on both ground and air, taking out large numbers with the armor's built-in weaponry. However, Ghost is eventually overwhelmed and the suit's shielding systems begins to fall. The suit becomes completely disabled when a plasma grenade severs the suit's and Ghost's left arm. As the sergeant struggles to move inside the disabled armor, he looks up at the escaping shuttles and thinks of his female marine from the past. He admits to himself that when she died in his arms, a part of him died too. At that point, he fully became a ghost, a shadow surrounded by death. A countdown on the suit's HUD finishes, and the onboard computer requests the self-destruct voice command. Ghost turns to face the continuing advancing Covenant one last time, and gives the command, "Be human." The prototype explodes in a nuclear detonation, killing Ghost and all surrounding life forms. As the evacuees rendezvous with a UNSC frigate in orbit of Algolis, Ghost's commanding officer reports of the succession of the Cole Protocol and rescinds his previous request for Ghost's court-martial, listing him as missing during heavy combat on the planet, and stating the man showed great conduct as both a Marine and a human being. The commander then informs of their planned rendezvous with the UNSC heart of the Midlothian. Midnight in the heart of the Midlothian, 2549. En route to Algolis. Aboard the UNSC heart of the Midlothian, ODST Sergeant Michael Baird is told he has cancer. The ship's medical technician expresses no concern, as this disease is easily treatable on board, and the procedure will only take an hour, with 2 days of recovery. The operation begins with the ship's AI, Mo Yi, watching over him. While Baird is asleep, the ship is ambushed by a small Covenant fleet housing specialized infiltration units, just as the UNSC vessel exits Slipspace. AI Mo Yi wakes up Baird, explaining the current situation of the ship and the Covenant's intentions to reverse the Cole Protocol for Earth's location by utilizing engineers. Recognizing the danger, Baird asks Mo Yi why she doesn't wipe the database. The AI explains that as the Covenant boarding party boarded, they destroyed her main systems, as she is now operating off a fragment of what was left to watch over Baird's surgery. In this state, she is unable to access anything useful aboard the UNSC vessel, and is bound to obey Asimov's first law of robotics, preventing her from initiating the ship's self-destruct sequence. Mo Yi orders Baird to go to the engine room to spin up the Slipspace drive, crashing the ship into a nearby red giant. Armed with only a fire extinguisher, Baird sets out but quickly encounters a Covenant search party. Killing the first Khadgar with the extinguisher, he arms himself with his carbine to take out the next. As the Ungoi disperse in fear, one accidentally runs into him. In shock, the commanding Singhili spears its energy sword through the Ungoi into Baird. The elite pulls away, with the Ungoi falling dead and Baird losing consciousness. The Singhili leaves, believing to have eliminated the ODST. Baird is awoken again by Mo Yi, who leads him to 4 drugs in the medbay, including a combat stem used by insurrectionists for combating Spartans. Taking it is suicide, as it unfortunately slowly destroys the body, but temporarily renders the user impervious to pain and capable of increased strength. Mo Yi was only allowed to inform him of the drug now, because Baird would only have an hour left to live regardless. With his clock ticking, Baird sets out for the engine room. The plan is cancelled, however, as he finds the engine room completely offline, and would be unable to use the ship's escape pods in time. Deciding on a new approach, Baird moves to the bridge and surrenders. He offers a deal. He will give the boarding party Earth's coordinates if they let him go. In order to retrieve the coordinates, however, he would have to reconnect Mo Yi to the main systems himself, as she would only obey him. The Covenant party comply, but are cautious. Despite now being able to destroy the UNSC vessel, Mo Yi still is prevented from allowing harm to come to Baird. To circumvent this, Baird punches the Singhili leader, breaking his hand in the process. The Singhili retaliates by decapitating Baird with his energy sword. With Baird now dead, Mo Yi detonates the nuclear charges. The explosion destroys the heart of Midlothian and all surrounding Covenant ships. Birth of the Banished. Planet Algolis. Atriox, Decimus, Engeddon, and several other disgruntled Jirlhanae who rebelled against their Singhili masters after being used by the Covenant as cannon fodder repeatedly. After establishing their group, the Banished started off as little more than raiders and pirates, conducting surgical raids against the Covenant and other targets while scavenging for resources and gathering mercenaries to their cause. Evading Covenant enforcers led to Atriox prioritizing stealth in his forces. Camber Moon. In the years following Camber's destruction, the Banished took possession of several UNSC assets abandoned on the moon. They then began to refit and repurpose these ruins into tools to serve their needs. Siege of Paris 4, 2549. Planet Paris 4. Very few specifics are known about the battle. However, according to a log by Staff Sergeant Avery Johnson, he was able to capture a crate of Covenant plasma grenades during the battle. From this crate, Sergeant Johnson absorbed a 1200 rad dose of radiation. This exposure would be the official cause of Johnson contracting Bourne syndrome. However, the cause of this radiation was later used by Oni as a cover-up for his involvement in the Orion project. Molly Patel recalls the day the Covenant attacked. She was 7. Molly and her parents, without her older sister Grace, who had spent the night before the attack at a friend's house, tried to search for her in the house, but Grace and her friend's family had already left. The rest of the Patel family tries to reach Minmer's spaceport, but the Covenant starts to glass the planet. Trying to escape the glassing beam, the family attempt to seek refuge inside a tunnel located at Chacanil Pass. Although the family barely manages to escape the glassing beam, their vehicle collides with the back of a truck inside the tunnel, killing both of Molly's parents immediately. Molly would be found in the tunnel by UNSC troops led by Sergeant Avery Johnson. Following the battle, most of the UNSC would leave the system, and the planet was left to be glassed, resulting in civilian casualties. Molly would be one of the few people to survive the glassing of the planet, leaving the media to dub her the Miracle Child. Staff Sergeant Avery Johnson would later receive a Commendation Medal for bravery due to actions during the conflict. Second Fall of Arcadia, 9 September 2549. Planet Arcadia. The Covenant returns to Arcadia with a massive fleet, one significantly larger than what would normally be seen to destroy a human colony of Arcadia's size. The fleet, tasked to destroy whatever human presence remained on the planet, was then shocked to find plant life overgrown in the colony's cities, while the remaining human settlers were living in a state of lawlessness and anarchy. Shortly after surveying the colony, the fleet began bombarding the planet's surface with plasma. The human population attempted to evacuate aboard transport shuttles, though some were left trapped on the planet. The Covenant fleet took particular care in glassing every surface of the planet. The fleeing civilians escaping via shuttles would be caught in the main Covenant plasma beams tracking their trajectories, broiling the ships in orbit. Only a handful of shuttles escaped with the aid of several light frigates fighting the Covenant, including the UNSC in amber-clad, before conducting a fighting retreat. The surviving Arcadians fled to refugee camps in the inner colonies, and eventually to Mars, resettling in the cramped huts in the UEG's reserve camps spread across the southern dunes. Some would later resettle the abandoned colony of Cairo following the end of the Human Covenant War. Banished attack on Covenant training camp. 2550. Atriox and the Banished killed the Singhili guards and stole everything they could, including vehicles and weapons. By this point, the Banished had attacked at least 5 other Covenant bases. Operation Slow Dive. 2550. Meant to be a hit-and-run mission to neutralize a Covenant forward outpost. When the team arrived at the location, the Covenant forces there had already been wiped out. In addition, every weapon and vehicle had been taken, except for those that were sabotaged. Ballistic reports from the scene confirmed that most of the damage dealt came from Pegasus workshop spikers, which suggested to Oni that Atriox and the Banished had been responsible for the attack. Glassing of Minab. 31 May 2550. Planet Minab. A fleet of at least 11 heavy Covenant destroyers fell upon the planet and immediately began glassing. Holly Tanaka and several others survived the planet by being in an underground mine owned by Tanaka Exploration. There was no known resistance put up by the UNSC, and the planet went into a nuclear winter after it was glassed. Battle of Gamma Pavinus 7, 2550. Planet Gamma Pavinus 7. Under the command of Naval Officer Miranda Keyes, the unarmed, remote sensing vessel UNSC Hilbert engaged a Covenant destroyer. 3 UNSC corvettes answered the Hilbert's resulting distress call and attempted to aid. The Covenant destroyer responded, turning away from the UNSC Hilbert and attacked the incoming reinforcements. Despite being outnumbered 3-1, the Covenant ship's shield and superior weaponry gave it an enormous advantage, with the UNSC Hilbert having no weapons capable of breaching the enemy's shields. Miranda Keyes ordered that her ship overload the engines and ram into the enemy vessel. The resulting collision damaged the destroyer's shields and pushed it into the planet's gravity well. As the crew abandoned ship, which now was falling into the planet's gravity well along with the hostile ship, the fusion core of the UNSC Hilbert went critical and detonated immediately after crashing into the planet's surface, completely destroying the Covenant destroyer and saving the crew members aboard the 3 UNSC corvettes. However, only 2 crewmen from the UNSC Hilbert made it to the escape pods in time, one of them being Miranda Keyes. In the following years, Miranda would be assigned an advisory role in the war's front lines, participating in the coordination of many crucial defenses against the Covenant. For her actions during the conflict, Miranda was awarded the Silver Star, presented by Lord Terence Hood, and promoted to Lieutenant Commander and given command of the UNSC in amber-clad. Operation Devil Freedom. 2551. Planet Ember. a UNSC operation carried out on the human inner colony world of Ember when it came under attack by the Covenant. Objectives included the evacuation of civilians and the targeting of Covenant landing craft for orbital bombardment. Defense of Concord, 5th December 2551. Planet Concord. Covenant activity was recorded at Lethbridge Industrial's combat fields just outside the city of Lethbridge. The following day, at 0720 hours, as part of Operation Gypsum, a still top-secret mission involving Sergeant Sigrid Eklund and a group of UNSC Army Rangers cleared out the Caravel province at the cost of 2 M9 Wolverines. The group then prepared to redeploy to a nearby mass driver station, which was being defended by militia forces. After the skirmish at the Caravel province, Eklund contacted Commander Rena, informing them the outcome of the battle and asking about the activity at the Lethbridge combat fields the previous day. By 12 December, the joint forces of the UNSC Army of Concordian Militia had largely repelled Covenant ground forces from the main cities. The Covenant had lost air superiority, and their ground forces were unable to evacuate from the planet. The redirected alien forces were then instructed to destroy the far less protected townships in the nearby region out of spite. During the battle, several test models of the Mjolnir powered assault armor were utilized, however, without the full combat suits. The Venator class Mjolnir, manufactured by Lethbridge Industrial, gained popularity during the defense due to the armor's effectiveness in hand-to-hand combat. Spartan Noble Team were additionally deployed during the engagement. However, they were only equipped with their Gen 1 Mjolnir suits. The engagement resulted in a victory for UNSC in space, as well as the end of most attacks within major cities. However, stranded Covenant forces and UNSC forces would continue to clash in Operation Offset I, where Noble Team would participate in. Operation Offset I, 12 December 2551. Planet Concord. Spartan Noble Team comprised of Carter Alpha 259, Catherine Bravo 320, June Alpha 266, Rosinda Alpha 344, George 052, and Tom Alpha 293 were assigned in the defense of Concord. Noble Team discovers that the Scathese citizens were already preparing to defend their town. So George began collecting ammunition with them, while June moved to an elevated position. Catherine informs Carter that their only working asset was a single M862 Arctic Warthog, and that air support and evacuation were hours away. Once June had a clear look at the approaching Covenant forces, he informs the team that a Zashk pattern Draugr siege platform was leading the charge. Formulating a plan, Catherine had Rosinda and Tom join her in the Warthog, while the rest of Noble stayed behind as rear guard. After Catherine entered the driver's seat, she headed straight at the approaching convoy, attracting the attention of the Draugur's escort of 6 ghosts and mortar fire from 2 wraiths. The ghosts began to flank the Spartans, leading to Rosinda flinging open her door and firing her short rifle. Her expertly placed shots killed the ungoy drivers of the first 3 ghosts and ruptured the fuel cell of the 4th, causing the vehicle to detonate. As the Warthog neared one of the remaining ghosts, Tom jumped from the Warthog, landing on the ghost and claimed it for himself after killing the driver. Realizing that keeping distance from the siege engine would be deadly, Kat directed Tom to draw fire from the Draugr as she and Rosinda prepared to board. Tom began to flank one of the escort wraiths, forcing the siege vehicle to redirect its focus cannons to cover its escort's blind spot. With the Draugur's attention focused on Tom's ghost, Kat drove up a nearby rocky outcropping, landing the Warthog on the lower troop bay of the Draugr. As the Warthog came to rest, Rosinda launched from her seat and killed multiple Kidgar with her knife. With their immediate threats eliminated, Kat began working on opening the Draugur's forward loading ramp so Tom could get inside. Once the ramp was lowered, Tom drove his ghost up into the belly of the siege vehicle. After reclosing the forward ramp, Cat used the siege engine's own focus cannons to destroy the remaining ghosts and wraiths, while Tom and Rosinda provided cover fire. Once the Covenant realized the Draugr was compromised, the convoys and accompanying Banshees moved to attack the city. With June and George waiting, the Banshees were no match. Knowing the remaining Covenant infantry would attempt to reclaim the Draugr, Cat reopened the loading ramp, and the 3 Spartans rushed to the infantry, ultimately eliminating all forces. The Spartans brought the captured Draugr back to the outskirts of the city, where a pair of Pelicans landed a few hours later to retrieve Noble Team and deliver supplies to the civilians. As Noble was busy offloading supply crates, Carter, Alpha 259, gathered his team for a situation update, stating Colonel Urban Holland was sending them to Fumarole, which was suspected to be attacked soon. Carter also informed Rosinda that she was being reassigned. Noble Team exchanged formal goodbyes and saluted before boarding their Pelicans, with Rosinda alone in her own. Both dropships lifted off, each going in opposite directions.
Voice command authorization. Be human. And for one last instant, I'm human again.